Now we're good.
So as Americans, we've become increasingly dependent on electronics due to the efficiency and convenience that they bring to our lives. However, we do not always consider the effects that our consumption of electronics has on both the planet and the people who live on it. Increased electronic consumption has led to a rising amount of e-waste found on the planet. So for this presentation, e-waste is going to be the byproduct of disposing of electronics and the hazardous chemicals that are in these electronics. Recently, the problems of e-waste have been brought to the nation's attention, and now new electronic waste facilities have been created in order to properly recycle these. However, these facilities do not effectively deal with the problems of e-waste. So in this speech, I will demonstrate how current recycling practices do not adequately deal with the problems of e-waste. Now, before I get into the recycling practices, I want to discuss some of the hazards e-waste has and the problems that it is creating. So electronic waste is generally made up of easy-to-recycle materials such as plastics and glass. However, it is the portion of e-waste that is not traditionally recycled that we should worry about. This portion contains harmful chemicals such as lead, mercury, and cadmium. There are two main problems with e-waste. The first is saying that it's contaminating the environment. According to the article Waste Flows and Current Health, chemicals can leach into the ground, water, or air if e-waste is not disposed of properly. Now, Gillis Slade, author of the book Made to Break, also shows how e-waste harms the environment when he states, all of the discarded components in the growing mountain of e-waste contain high levels of permanent biological toxins, here known as PBTs, ranging from arsenic, beryllium, and cadmium to lead, nickel, and zinc. When e-waste is burned anywhere in the world, dioxins and other pollutants are released into the air, which causes potential health consequences around the globe. When e-waste is buried in landfills, PBTs eventually seep into the groundwater, poisoning it. Now, the contamination of the ground, water, and air causes exposure for humans to the chemicals in e-waste. Now, this leads to my second problem. The second problem is that when humans are exposed to these chemicals for an extended period of time, they can cause severe health detriment. Now, according to the Environmental Protection Agency, exposure to lead, mercury, and cadmium from e-waste can cause damage to the brain, kidneys, nervous system, and can even cause cancer. To properly dispose of e-waste, recycling plants must be able to effectively extract the recyclable materials from electronics, while also taking care to properly handle the hazardous materials as to prevent exposures. However, this is not what is happening today. As I said previously, the current recycling practices do not adequately deal with the problems of e-waste. This is due mainly to the fact that recycling facilities are shipping the hazardous e-waste to third world countries instead of properly disposing of it. According to the article Waste Flows from Current Health, the electronics land in places where people earn next to nothing. The system relies on low-wage workers to basically bash open electronics. People remove the metals and junk the rest. They burn the plastic. It's literally poisoning people. Now, Annie Leonard, author of the book Story Stuff, which I know some of us have read, reports a similar story. She states, 80% of the collected e-waste in the United States is actually exported overseas to developing countries, where much is simply dumped. Some is processed in the most horrific manner one can imagine. Whole families wearing zero protective gear, smashing open computers to recover the minute amount of precious metal, burning the PVC off wires to get to the copper, and soaking components in acid baths before pouring the bath water into rivers. This is a toxic nightmare of gigantic proportions. Instead of effectively recycling our electronic waste, the U.S. is merely shipping the problem somewhere else. Environmental contamination is still occurring, and people are still suffering from exposure to the hazardous portion of e-waste. The only difference is that now the problem is not directly in front of us, so a lot of us tend to ignore it. So, in conclusion, current recycling practices do not adequately deal with the problems of e-waste because the problems are still occurring after. E-waste still continues to contaminate the environment and still continues to harm those that are exposed to it.